It's been on my mind for quite some time, the whole climate change debate, environmental concerns, and the rise of pollution. I've always felt strongly about these issues and have been closely observing what others have been doing. Over the past few years, what started as a pleasant royal tradition, a quiet Sunday afternoon on the Windsor grounds where young members from two very different royal families came together for a family bonding event, has taken a darker turn. Among the youngest was Prince George, who is steadily growing into his role as heir with a quiet strength and calm demeanor. He had attended these gatherings before, always under the watchful eye of his mother, Princess Catherine. But this time, things were different. What began as a light-hearted get-together between cousins and step-cousins quickly took a troubling turn. Rumors spread throughout the palace that Prince George had been bullied, and the culprit was reportedly one of Camilla's grandsons. But before we continue, we'd love for you to hit the subscribe button if you're enjoying this video. If you just did, we truly appreciate it. Now let's get back to the main content. This boy, from Camilla's Parker Bowles lineage, hadn't yet been officially recognized as a royal. Still, Camilla had been pushing hard behind the scenes to elevate her family's standing, securing modest titles, prestigious schooling, and small ceremonial roles. Some within the royal circle quietly criticized her overreach, though most remained silent, until now. When Prince George came home in tears, everything shifted. Kate was the first to notice his watery eyes, his quietness, and the slump in his posture. She asked what had happened, and George, in the honest way only a young child can, explained that the teasing was more than just casual. It was intentional. His future role as king was mocked. According to palace insiders, the boy had absorbed too many adult whispers at home and became cruel, ridiculing George's habits, family, and even his late grandmother, Diana. Kate was furious. William was heartbroken. Behind the palace gates, a line had been crossed. What happened next was swift, discreet, but explosive. Prince William made a decision that would have long-lasting effects on royal history. Camilla's grandson, who had been poised to receive honorary royal status, was stripped of any chance at future titles. There would be no further discussions, no gradual integration into royal events, no second chances. While the palace has refused to make a public statement, the atmosphere inside is tense. Camilla is reportedly outraged, and Charles, caught between loyalty to his wife and his son, has taken a hands-off approach, an action many interpret as saying more than words ever could. The public was watching closely, reading between the lines and making their own judgments, because in a monarchy built on bloodline, protecting the next generation is everything. This time, Prince George wasn't just protected, he was defended. The day was supposed to be a light-hearted, feel-good occasion, one of those carefully staged royal family events designed to remind the press and public that beneath all the jewels and ceremony, the Windsors are just like everyone else. The scene was set on Balmoral's stunning private grounds, where a large picnic had been arranged with soft tartan blankets spread across the grass, golden corgis playfully running around, and royal children darting between games and snacks under the watchful eyes of parents and nannies. But no one anticipated, and no royal aid could prevent, how badly things would unravel. The event was personally organized by King Charles, who felt it was time to mend the unseen cracks beneath the surface. His hope was that bringing together Prince William's children and Camilla's grandchildren in a relaxed environment would help build stronger bonds. The Queen Consort was eager to support the plan. She saw the gathering as more than just a picnic. It was a subtle power play, an opportunity for her family to gain visibility, recognition, and affection within the royal fold. Not everyone shared that enthusiasm. According to insiders, Princess Catherine was uneasy from the start. Known for her diplomatic skills, she reportedly opposed the idea of forcing her children, especially Prince George, to mingle with Camilla's more outspoken grandchildren. After all, George was being raised with the heavy responsibility of a future crown, taught from a young age about humility, honor, and duty. Camilla's relatives, by contrast, were raised in a more informal setting with far fewer restrictions. By mid-afternoon, tensions flared. While the adults sipped tea beneath a marquee tent, the kids were encouraged to play together in a loosely supervised garden area. What began as a friendly homemade football game quickly turned ugly. Words were exchanged, then things took a darker turn. Several accounts say that Camilla's oldest grandson started targeting George, not just about the game, but on a personal level. "Why do you walk like that?" one child was overheard taunting. "Do you think you're better than everyone else because of your silly crown?" What might have been brushed off as childish teasing quickly escalated into something far more serious. Prince George, who had just turned 11, reportedly tried to run away, but was chased down and mocked for his special status as the chosen heir. According to an aide who later reported to senior staff, he was even called a mama's boy. A deeply sensitive insult for a child whose late grandmother, Princess Diana, is revered almost like a sacred figure. Staff quickly intervened to separate the children, but the damage was already done. George, who normally kept his composure in public, was visibly shaken. A family bodyguard quietly escorted him away from the scene to avoid media attention. When Catherine was informed, her son was already in tears in the car. The rest of the afternoon passed with forced smiles and awkward small talk. Camilla, seemingly unaware of the full seriousness of the situation, or perhaps choosing to ignore it, continued with her hosting duties. Meanwhile, Catherine's close friends say she was stoic, her smiles fading, and she held Charlotte's hand more tightly than usual. Once back at their private residence, Kate sat down with George for a full account of what had happened. What she heard stunned her. The bullying wasn't just random cruelty. It was calculated and intentional, echoing adult language and sentiments, suggesting Camilla's grandson was repeating toxic messages from home. This realization hit Kate the hardest. Not only the cruelty of kids, but the poisonous prejudice passed down through hushed conversations and sideways glances. Prince William was immediately informed. As George went to bed early, red-eyed and withdrawn, William sat quietly beside Catherine. The pain on his face went beyond sympathy for his son. It was the sharp sting of history repeating itself. But this time, he vowed to take action. This time, there would be consequences. He was determined to protect his son, no matter what. That evening, as their car pulled up to Adelaide Cottage, the tension was thick. Prince George hadn't spoken a word since leaving Balmoral. His usual calm and polite demeanor was now overshadowed by embarrassment. Princess Catherine sat beside him, gently resting her hand on his back, instincts as a mother firing all at once. Away from royal eyes and aides, Kate took George aside and softly asked, "Tell me exactly what happened." What he shared next broke her heart. George hesitated at first, but then spoke with growing confidence. The name-calling, the mocking, the cruel remarks about his father being a puppet king in the future, the nasty jabs that he was only loved because of his status, and worst of all, the disrespectful way Princess Diana's name was mocked as if it were a joke. Kate's expression changed instantly. Her eyes, usually calm and composed, turned cold and steely. Not with the kind of explosive anger you might expect, but with the chilling, resolute fury of a mother whose child had been deeply hurt. According to a senior royal aide, Kate's words were sharp and unambiguous. "That boy will never be near my children again." She meant every word. Kate had endured years of silent pressure from the institution. She had navigated the royal world with grace, smiled through scandals, and quietly watched as Camilla's family was slowly brought closer to the core of the monarchy. But this crossed a line no mother, and certainly no future queen, could tolerate. Within an hour, she had informed William of the incident. Behind the closed doors of Adelaide Cottage, insiders say the conversation between the couple was the most emotionally charged they'd had in years. Kate didn't shed tears or raise her voice, but made it clear that if William didn't act, she would. She reminded him of Diana, how the institution had failed her, and how small problems could spiral into disasters. "George will not grow up feeling unsafe in his own family," she reportedly declared. "You're the heir. It's time to start acting like it." William listened and agreed. The next morning, Kate canceled all her scheduled appearances. She stayed home with George and Charlotte, a silent protest. Behind the scenes, she demanded palace officials document the incident. She wanted a formal record, no cover-ups, no excuses, no spin. That morning, a message was sent to King Charles's private secretary. There had been an incident involving Prince George. The Prince and Princess of Wales requested a private meeting with His Majesty. Within 24 hours, the meeting took place. King Charles expressed sympathy, but Camilla reportedly dismissed the issue as childish bickering. When asked whether her grandson would face any consequences, she allegedly laughed it off, saying, "They're just children. They'll forget this in a week." Kate didn't respond, but she didn't need to. Her steely gaze and firm commitment to George's future said everything the palace had to hear. She was no longer just the Princess of Wales. She was a mother, and this was personal now. Prince William had spent much of his life balancing loyalty to his father and reverence for the throne, haunted by his mother's tragic legacy. But when it came to his own son, there was no room for hesitation, no diplomacy, no protocol. Something inside him had shifted. The day after his private talk with King Charles, William returned to Kensington Palace and made a decision that stunned even his closest advisors. William gathered his senior advisors, paced the floor of his private study, and firmly announced, "Camilla's grandson will never inherit a royal title. Not now, not ever. This ends here." There would be no debate, no royal committee, no negotiations. What made William's move so significant wasn't just the decision itself, but that he took control without first seeking approval from King Charles or the palace apparatus. Over the years, Camilla had quietly been pushing to bring her children and grandchildren closer to official royal recognition, lobbying for honorary roles, public acknowledgement, and subtle involvement in state occasions. While the public barely noticed the gradual encroachment, William saw it clearly, and with George hurt and Camilla deflecting blame, he recognized it for what it was, an attempt to fold her family into the monarchy's future. William found this unacceptable. The boy who had bullied George wasn't simply a misbehaving kid. He embodied everything wrong with Camilla's influence, exploiting Charles's guilt, manipulating his age, and blurring the lines between duty and favoritism. William's message was clear. Royal privilege isn't handed down by family ties. It is earned through respect, service, and above all, honor. One insider close to William described his tone during internal briefings as icy. When an aide cautiously suggested that a private apology from Camilla's family might smooth things over, William responded bluntly, "My son doesn't need an apology. He needs protection." He then took an even tougher stance, declaring that Camilla's grandson would no longer be invited to any family gatherings involving his children. Not birthdays, not holidays. There would be no rehearsals for Trooping the Color if George, Charlotte, or Louis were present. Camilla's grandson simply wouldn't be. This wasn't a negotiation. It was an ultimatum. News of William's decision quickly spread through royal circles. Charles was reportedly taken aback and paced his study in silence upon hearing it. He had expected the matter to blow over quietly. Instead, William, usually composed and cooperative, had drawn a hard line. And what was most striking, he didn't back down. For William, this wasn't just about discipline. It was about control and sending a message not only to Camilla, but to the entire institution. The days of sweeping disagreements under the rug for the sake of unity were over. The days of tolerating disrespect toward Diana's legacy or his own children had ended. He had been patient for years. But as George's public profile grew, William made it clear he would stand as a shield, a lion, first and foremost as a father, and only then as a future king. No child connected to Camilla, no matter how close to the throne, would ever receive a royal title under his watch. Camilla didn't believe the news at first. Sitting quietly in her private drawing room at Clarence's house, sipping afternoon tea, she was informed by a senior aide that William had not only refused to grant her grandson an honorary title, but also banned him from all royal family events involving his children. The atmosphere in the room shifted noticeably. At first, Camilla brushed it off as a misunderstanding. "That can't be right," she said sharply. "Charles would never approve this." But as the full details came to light, William's direct meeting with the king, his refusal to accept apologies, and the official record of the incident, the reality sank in. Her hands trembled as she set down her teacup. "He's gone too far," Camilla said, barely containing her anger. "This is personal, vindictive. It's not justice, it's punishment." Camilla's frustration wasn't just about her grandson's actions. It was about legacy. She had fought for years to have her family accepted within the royal circle. When she married Charles, her children and grandchildren had been kept at a distance, treated as outsiders rather than true members of the royal family. She had tolerated that. Until now. Over time, she had worked to weave them into the royal fabric. A stroll in a procession here, a spot at a Jubilee event there, honorary invitations to prestigious schools, and subtle moves to boost their public profiles. It wasn't official, but it was intentional. She wanted history to remember the Parker Bowles name as significant, that her family was more than just baggage, that they were a key part of the crown's future. Now, with one decisive action, William had shattered that dream. Camilla demanded an immediate meeting with Charles. She reportedly stormed into his study, holding the letter William had sent through official channels. Her voice, rarely heard so forcefully within the palace walls, echoed down the hallway. "He humiliated us. He embarrassed me. This is a child, Charles. A child." But Charles, worn down and feeling the weight of his reign, didn't fully back her. Those close to the king say he felt torn. While he sympathized with Camilla, he also recognized the bigger picture. William was staking his claim, not just as a son, but as the future monarch. And Charles, already facing public doubts about his rule, couldn't afford a showdown with his successor. He told Camilla something she didn't want to hear. "I won't override him," Charles said quietly. "He's responsible for protecting his family. We have to respect that." Camilla reportedly went pale, spun around, and left the room, slamming the door behind her. A rare breach of palace protocol that shocked nearby staff. That evening, she canceled a scheduled public appearance, citing a migraine, a claim few believed. Those close to her say she remained silent during dinner and refused to even mention William's name. But her anger hadn't faded. It had only gone underground. "She'll never forget this," a senior palace official reportedly said. Camilla may smile for the cameras, but behind closed doors, a line has been crossed. She no longer sees William as her stepson, she sees him as a threat. Camilla had played the long game for decades, but in one decisive move, William made it clear. The game was over, and she had lost. The British public has always held a deep emotional connection to the royal family's children, especially those in the direct line of succession. Above all, Prince George has captured hearts like few others. Many see the young boy, once nervously clutching his father's hand during royal events, as the embodiment of the monarchy's future dignity, strength, and grace. So when whispers first emerged about a troubling incident involving George and Camilla's grandson, public attention quickly shifted to Buckingham Palace. Tabloids, careful not to breach protocol but clearly fed by insiders, started dropping hints. Headlines like, "Royal Rift Behind Closed Doors," and "Tensions Rise at Private Family Gathering," stirred curiosity. Before long, the full story broke with a headline that lit up the news cycle. Prince George mocked by step relative. William responds with title ban. The news spread like wildfire. Online forums, Twitter feeds, and Facebook threads flooded with messages of sympathy for George and anger toward Camilla's camp. Thousands chimed in with the same sentiment. "Well done, William. Protect that boy. Diana would be proud." Some commentators even pointed out the irony. Camilla, once blamed for dividing the royal family, now had a grandson crossing lines, and Diana's grandson was the one paying the price. Team George quickly became a trending hashtag on social media. Artists shared drawings of the young prince wearing a tiny crown with quiet dignity. One widely shared post read, "At 11, George is more royal than many adults ever will be. This isn't about blood. It's about character." Royal experts took note too. A former palace press secretary told a morning news program, "This marked a turning point for Prince William. He put family above politics, and the public has responded with overwhelming support." Behind the scenes, palace aides noticed a sharp change. Camilla had enjoyed a period of lukewarm public approval, especially after the late queen worked to soften her image as queen consort. But that goodwill evaporated within days of the story breaking. Polls showed Camilla's popularity plummeting dramatically. Meanwhile, William and Kate's approval ratings soared. The public, already protective of Kate and their children, now saw them as both victims of unfair treatment and champions for standing their ground. Inside the palace, there was quiet but strong backing for the senior courtiers of the Wales family, many of whom had served during Diana's time, who voiced their support for William's decisive actions. "This is what the monarchy needs," one advisor reportedly said. "Strength, clear boundaries, and someone willing to stop using tradition as an excuse for bad behavior." Kate received heartfelt letters from parents across the UK, sharing their own stories of children being mistreated and praising her for defending her son. Some of those messages brought her to tears. But the most memorable moment came during a modest Sunday church visit a week later. As William, Kate, George, and Charlotte stepped out of the car, the crowd erupted in spontaneous applause. It wasn't loud or showy. It was warm, genuine, and respectful. Prince George didn't fully understand what was happening, but Kate did. She bent down, squeezed his hand, and whispered something the cameras didn't catch. The message was clear. People were watching, and they were firmly on his side. Throughout the long history of the British monarchy, many conflicts have been fought quietly behind gilded doors, beneath the weight of tradition, and in the shadows of history. But this time felt different. This wasn't a dispute over protocol or politics. It was personal. In standing up for his son, Prince William drew a boundary no monarch since has publicly dared to cross. Camilla had spent years trying to change public opinion, to bring her family closer to the throne, and to rewrite a past she once tried to distance herself from. But all that careful maneuvering unraveled in a matter of days, not because of politics or scandal, but because a child was hurt. The child's parents refused to stay silent. Kate held her ground with grace. William acted with conviction, and despite his youth, George emerged with a quiet victory, a clear signal that his family will always stand up for him. The monarchy is changing. Titles will no longer be handed out behind closed doors. Silence will no longer be the price for peace. The future of the throne lies not in ceremonies or age-old rituals, but in integrity, something Prince William has shown he's willing to protect at any cost. Camilla, who had quietly been gaining influence, is now more isolated than ever. Her grandson's place in the royal spotlight is gone, and the Parker Bowles family's prospects have dimmed. The impact of one moment, one harsh encounter, has rippled through the kingdom like a thunderstorm. The dust is still settling, but one thing is clear. A new standard has been set for royalty. Titles must be earned. Respect must be mutual. There are no second chances for those in line for the crown. This wasn't just a family dispute. It was a redefinition of power, spoken not with swords or speeches, but through a father's voice and a mother's determination. And from this day forward, the monarchy will never be the same.